Yes, yes, yes. Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings. I am your host for today, Jesse Montano, along with my old friend, my great friend, AJ Hafley. AJ, it feels like we haven't missed a beat. Three years later, it's right back at it, you and me.
Yeah. It's weird to do it at home and not in the corner of a bar somewhere.
Well, and also
we each drove 40 minutes to get to.
And also not on what was the old program we used where everything would lag out and we'd have to spend hours editing just getting everything to line back up. Yeah, a little bit more sophisticated. Looks a little bit nicer. Got some video with it. It's amazing. Old times caught up. Well, cool, man. Well, definitely a big story in the NHL this morning. Woke up to some conference-altering, league-altering, honestly, news. Sounds like it went down overnight. Jack Eichel is heading out west to the Vegas Golden Knights. We're going to talk a lot about how that impacts that team, the Pacific Division, the Western Conference in general, and also, obviously, how it impacts the Avs. These are two of the top teams that everyone's kind of expecting to be there at the end, assuming they both get it together after a pair of kind of matching rocky starts. So we're going to talk about that. Also, some updates coming out of the Avs practice this morning down at Ball Arena. Some friendly faces back on the ice. But first, AJ, Jack Eichel heads to Vegas in exchange for Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, a conditional first and a second-round pick. Just right off the top, before we get too in the weeds, your thoughts on just the return?
So it's interesting because it's both expensive and cheap.
Yeah.
Because this is really expensive if Jack Eichel is not
healthy.
Jack Eichel, like the guy that we are thinking of, right. the guy that was a half step behind Connor McDavid in his draft year, the guy that nobody really blinked when he signed the gigantic contract that he's currently on.
Right.
Like this was like Alex Tuch is a really good middle six wing.
Yeah.
On a really good contract, like a really good contract.
Yeah.
Peyton Krebs is a really good young prospect that should be able to play at center and should be, the hope is that he turns into a Ryan O'Reilly type player.
Mm-hmm.
He may not get quite that good offensively, but if he can,
but if he's in that neighborhood,
if he can at least be a legitimate 2C that's very good defensively, they'll be absolutely thrilled with that.
Yeah.
And then they get a first and second round pick. Like those are good assets. Those are top 60, probably top 60 assets, barring Vegas winning a Stanley Cup, in which it
just
3 asset.
Just to
good return.
Just to fill in on the Alex Tuch contract, he is signed at 4.75 through 2026. So a really good number for a player that has produced the way that Alex Tuch has the last couple seasons. Really good number. So to your point, man, it's a good return. You've got some really good pieces. You've got some good draft picks. I'll be honest though, I was a little surprised. I feel like there was offers out there that would have yielded a little bit more return, but definitely the conversation around that is Buffalo was not willing to retain any amount of salary on Jack Eichel.
Yeah. A lot of comparisons have been made to Colorado trading Berkey and Newhook in a first, and that's what it would, but it's not. Burakovsky being a free agent at the end of this year and Alex Tuch being a guy that can score 20 goals and probably 55 points in that range I said middle six, like that's on a good team. In Buffalo, he'll be a top 6. But him being signed for under $5 million for the foreseeable future, I mean, you're talking That's great. It's going to be great contract value. Now, are they going to try and win in that time? Are they going to be competitive in that contract? We'll see, right?
Yeah.
But if they are, it's great value. And if it's not, if they aren't, he probably becomes a flip candidate as somebody that they want to move in the last year of that deal, where he'll have a lot of value and he'll be a good wing. So
does have a modified no trade in the last 3 years of his deal,
which, you know, those are not usually something that cause problems.
Yeah, no, and especially if you're in that situation where they really aren't still competitive by the time that comes around, you usually don't have a hard time getting guys to waive that to go to a competitive team. Peyton Krebs, this is a kid that I know that AJ you've been high on. You know, we've talked a lot about the comparisons with him and Newhook, both just kind of following a similar path to the NHL. It sounds like he will be at least in the immediate reporting to the Rochester Americans. This is a kid that we're expecting to be with the Buffalo Sabres in pretty short order. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a guy that needs to do, you know, if they want to put him in Rochester and playing with guys like Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka, and they're still committed to losing this year and getting those guys to kind of grow up together. Fine. Like, that's all good and well. Just for the record, there was a comment in here about Tuck is more consistent than Burakovsky. Burakovsky's outscored him the last 2 years. So
yeah. Are you talking about just goals or overall points or both?
Both. Alex Tuck had 17 points in 42 games 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. 8 goals, 9 assists in 1920.
Yeah. And last year in similar number of games played, Berkey outscored him quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think by 11 points. So obviously Tuck's was playing on the third line and not in a surefire top 6 role. So there's some caveat there. Just since this is the comparison that we are rolling with for the day between Tuck and Burakovsky, but Burakovsky is not going to be signing for $4.75 million,
especially when he hits 30 goals.
Yeah, he's going to do that. He needs to get a move on.
Yeah, he needs to play. How about that?
Well, sounds good. It sounds like that's on track to happen.
Yeah.
The big thing here for Vegas is, and why I said it's both cheap and expensive. It's really expensive. If Jack Eichel has the disc replacement surgery, which he is, and comes back and he's 80% of the player, he's a really good player.
Yeah. But
he's better than William Karlsson, but it's only a nominal upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
and
rolling you go from Chandler Stevenson and William Karlsson, and then Nicholas Waugh is your 1, 2, 3, and now you go Jack Eichel, William Karlsson, Chandler Stevenson as your 1, 2, 3. You have taken a pretty big step forward in terms of, like, Chandler Stevenson has done a phenomenal job moonlighting as a top 6 center and filling in where they've needed. He has been so good and so valuable for them. But to be able to put him in a more appropriate role when they get healthy is, I think, going to have a potentially transformational effect because now their bottom 6 becomes a lot more offensively dangerous, and a lot more problematic. And then obviously Jack Eichel between Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone, even if he is 80% of the player, that is still a really, really good line. If he ends up becoming 100% of the player and he's Jack Eichel as we think of him, Vegas is the favorite in the West until the aging curve starts to really, 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 really hurt these guys.
Right. And just touching on you know what you're talking about of how that depth chart of theirs starts kind of sliding down. It really is. It's you're plugging those guys into where they should actually be in a lineup. You're not asking anyone to overextend. And suddenly you go from having 3 guys who are good centers making up, you know, your top 3 you know, going down the middle on your top three lines, to now all those guys slot down one. It's where they're supposed to fit, and you replace them with someone who, I mean, that puts their top line right up there with Colorado's, with Boston's, you know, win at, you know, full health, full strength. Stone, Eichel, Pacioretty, McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, you know, Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak. I mean, those are three of your best lines.
Yeah.
Easily.
Definitely.
So no, it completely changes the way that this team looks, not only at the top, but throughout the lineup. And honestly, Peyton Krebs been playing regularly with Vegas this season?
He has not had a steady role.
So I mean, Alex Tuch has been hurt. Vegas got away with doing this without really giving up much off of their
it helps
active roster.
It helps when their active roster is beat to shit.
Right.
So, you know, like Alex Tuch would have been off their regular roster had he not been hurt to start the season.
Yeah. Right.
And he's an important, like, Tuch has been a really important guy for them.
Yeah, he's been big for them. Season.
Yep. But it is, you're right in that it doesn't touch the NHL roster today. As people have noted in the comment section here, when Eichel comes back from injury, there's, depending on when it is, if they Kucherov this and they kind of extend it and they wait until May 1st, I think is the start of the playoffs. And then he comes back when there's no more salary cap, and that's it, then they are good. They don't have to touch the rest of their roster. If he comes back during the season and they've got actual salary cap implications, they might have to do some serious work at the deadline to clear space. I think they'll probably just try and game the system. It's my guess. Jack Eichel hasn't played in however long, and he's just going to roll into the postseason, and let's hope this goes well.
So that was going to be where I wanted to take this next. Because obviously for Buffalo, you know, Eichel comes off the books. They get a nice return that all have, you know, some nice term to it, some nice longevity to those assets that they're getting. A lot of people are looking at this and saying, how does Vegas squeeze all of this in? And I really kind of step back and say, okay, you've got some LTIR stuff that you can kind of play around with for this year, whether it be Eichel through the playoffs, you know, Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty right now. How do they make this work beyond this season? And like you said, what happens if this goes exactly the way that Jack Eichel and his team have kind of been saying, where, hey, this is the quicker recovery time. You're supposed to be able to get back to it, you know, full health, full strength, a little bit quicker. How do they juggle this if he's ready to go in February? I mean, it's just a really interesting situation.
They've got to move somebody. I think Riley Smith is the obvious candidate. At $5 million, he's expensive. He's a UFA. They probably can't bring him back. I think he's the top. He's the guy that makes the most sense for them to try and part with.
Move on, yeah.
And the thing is that any deal that they make, they can't take salary back.
Right.
So they're making a futures deal. It's got to be prospects. It's got to be picks. That's one approach. The Dadonov would be another guy that they should seriously consider getting rid of, just because $5 million for next year too is some money that's on their books, and they've got some work to do, especially because when you're deep into LTIR the way that they are, then you're not accruing a daily cap. You're not accruing daily cap space, which is just going to cause huge problems at the deadline. So they're gonna have some serious gymnastics that they have to work through in order to make this work just this year. Next year, even if the cap goes up $1 million, the whole $1 million to 82.5,
yeah,
they're already at 78.7 committed, and that's with half their forward core expiring. So they're gonna have some problems. They're gonna have to find some answers. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, that they didn't make the trade for Johnny Boychuk's contract today, the LTIR. that Buffalo made that deal to get. Oh, it's in the last year, so that wouldn't have helped. All right. They're a team that's going to have to acquire LTIR guys in order for them to play the salary cap games that they're going to need to. So this is they've got a lot of work to do, and there's no guarantee that Jack Eichel comes out of this as the Jack Eichel that we're expecting. I have no idea how it's going to go. I've got confidence that he'll be able to play again, and that they didn't just give up 4 pieces for nothing.
For nothing, yeah.
But it is a fair question to wonder, how good is Eichel actually going to be? Yeah. What's Vegas going to get out of him when he comes back? How much time are they going to have to build up chemistry and get him in practicing and get him comfortable and in games and in shape and blah 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 blah, right?
Because when was the last time he played a game? When was the last time Jack Eichel actually played in a game?
He played in, I don't know, 2020. He had his 21 games last year, so it's been a while.
Yeah, and by the time that he actually gets on the ice, it's going to have been a long time. So two last questions for you on the how this impacts Vegas. Then we can kind of start moving on. One, I just kind of want your opinion on what does this actually do for this organization long term? Because this really does seem like more of a move where it's like, hey, here's a really good player. We wanted him. We got him because we think that we can get over the hump, win a Stanley Cup this year or next. Just with the cap constraints this is going to put on them, beyond that, how do you think this actually impacts this team, like I said, in the long term?
Well, they've been strong at wing, which we know doesn't win championships. We know that you don't win championships by not having power down the middle. You've got to have centers. You've just got to have centers. You just can't do it. I mean, you look at why was Calgary the other team?
Yeah,
trying to offer up Matt Tkachuk because both healthy, both really good, but Matt Tkachuk is not as valuable as Jack Eichel if Jack Eichel is the guy we're assuming, because Jack Eichel plays center. He's just more valuable. It's just how it is. Those guys are more valuable. But you look at Vegas, they've got a legit number one in Robin Lehner. They've got Alex Pietrangelo, Shea Theodore, Zach Whitecloud, Alec Martinez. Like, they've got a legit defense. It would be great if it would help them if that defense would actually play decently, because they've been horrible this year, which is their concern. If those guys, Petrangelo's 31, Martinez is 34, McNabb is 30. Like, if those are important.
Yeah.
If those guys start to show their age, they're gonna have a hard time. They're gonna it's gonna be Jack Eichel dragging around a bunch of boat anchors. And you're just like, well, we just traded problems.
Yeah.
But it's some of this is also gonna depend, like, what are the residual LTR moves that they make for to be cap compliant. Because if they have to move a Riley Smith, that just now they've lost Smith, now they've lost Tuck, like, now you're not as strong at wing.
Right.
And you did all of this just for Jack Eichel, but also your futures have taken a pretty big impact. And you were already not. Peyton Krebs was your top prospect. You just traded away another first-round pick. You just traded away a second-round pick. You're already not great in your future, in sitting in your futures. So your prospect pool isn't robust. And you've given up really valuable picks. You really need Jack Eichel to be the guy.
Right.
And if he is the guy, Jack Eichel between Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty is gonna be nasty.
Yeah, way sick. Yeah. But yeah, it is just interesting to look at it, because I have no doubt in my mind that they will find a way to get around all the cap stuff this year. Like you said, I'm honestly envisioning this being because they already quoted 4 to 5 months. And when I saw that, I was like, yep, they're setting him up perfectly to do the Nikita Kucherov thing. Yeah. I would expect that he starts getting into practices in early March. and they'll just kind of do the whole, oh, well, he's getting back up to speed. He's getting in shape. Would you look at that? Game 1, Series 1. He's finally good. He's finally healthy enough to go. So I have no question that they'll find a way to get around it this year. But it is next year where I really do think it starts getting interesting for them. The Minnesota Wild, honestly. Those are the two teams that I really am keeping an eye on, saying, what are they going to look like when they get to next season? Last question I've got for you. I just want your opinion on on the way that Vegas has kind of gone about doing business the last few years. If you're a Vegas fan on Twitter, like, they're a dream, because anything you're like, oh, they should go out and get this guy, and they do. Oh, well, they should try to get that guy, and they do. They really do have that mindset of, like, if there's a good player, we want to go out and get him, and we'll deal with what we have to deal with later. Yeah, no,
it's kind of like what we've been seeing with the LA Rams in the NFL. When you go all in, the problem is that when you go all in, you can't stop going all in. If you don't win it. If you keep, you sign, you give away Nate Schmidt, and you do all these things you do all the gymnastics to sign Alex Petrangelo, and now you have to do all these things to give, you've given away Alex Tuck and Peyton Krebs, who is a big part of your future.
Yeah.
Like, you do all of these things. Now you're going to have to do even more things in order to get Jack Eichel up to speed, or you're going to get Jack Eichel, coming out of the totally raw, and you have no idea how good he's going to be. Like, you do all of this. Like, it's all good and well. You've made the conference finals more often than not in your history. You have been competitive, and you've done everything you can to legitimize the fluky first year. It's been great.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a crazy atmosphere out there. They mean business.
It's awesome.
They've gone hard, but you're talking about, I mean, you look at next year, like, the elite guys are in place, but they have very little wiggle room to improve at this point.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think this is the last truly big move that they can make, because they don't have any more good value contracts that they can include in deals like this, like the Tuck moving forward. They only have expensive deals. Like Shea Theodore is on a good contract. He's still making $5.2 million, and he is enormously important to their success in the future.
Yeah.
Like, they no longer have these just like, oh, there's a guy here that they can move and a guy there that they can move. If this doesn't work the way that they envision, this era will not produce a championship. And it's all in. It's great fun to watch. It's tremendous theater. It's so Vegas, right?
The NHL needed this. The NHL needed an organization like this.
And that's great, but where are they in 4 years? Ask the Detroit Red Wings how aging out goes. It's hard to recover from. And that's not their problem. That's not their problem right now. They're not worrying about that. If they win a cup, this is all justified. If they don't, Jack Eichel is going to be walking in a free agent, because that team's going to be rebuilding by the end of this contract he's on. Yeah.
But to your point, it's kind of like the Denver Broncos right now. They won a Super Bowl a few years ago, so you can live with a few years of pain, right? Yep. If Vegas wins a Stanley Cup, nobody really cares.
It's all justified. It's all in service of the cup.
Yeah.
If you get the cup, you're good.
You're good. Well, cool. Well, let's bail out of period one here. Got to remind you guys about our phenomenal partners over there at Manscaped. We flew a little too off the rails last night, so I'm going to keep it more G-rated for these reads. I don't know what Rudo was talking about last night, going a little crazy.
What are you talking about? He was just talking about making your junk look good, man. That's all you got. I'm up for whoever's going to see it. You got to dress.
I'm talking about across the board. He was making me blush a little bit. But no, you do have to dress up your junk. That is a great way to put it, AJ. Head on over to manscaped.com. Use a promo code DNVR for 20% off and free shipping. Step up your grooming game with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside the package, you'll get the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer. Did I just hear a chuckle in my ear?
No,
Someone laughing at me here?
You're good. I'm laughing at Kira's comment.
The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Toner, Performance Boxer Briefs, and a travel bag to hold all of your goodies. Also found out last night, they offer everything else. Breath mints, things like that. Literally everything that you will need for your perfect date night.
Truly, top to bottom, they've got all of your date night needs covered, from dress up to clean up.
Damn, dress up to clean up. I'm getting that tattooed. We are also presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, one of my favorite sponsors that we've ever had. Make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use, again, promo code DNVR. I'm going to have to get back in the saddle on that tonight. Did not have a great night last night on DraftKings, but that is all right.
I hit the over and JT Comfort to score, so I was feeling good last night. I did have Kadri to score first goal. Obviously, that didn't happen, but hey, 2 of 3, I was feeling good. So
I'm apparently the only one that didn't have a JT Comfort play last night.
I also did not.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, all right, cool. I was sitting there and everyone was like,
and his didn't hit, so. But he got Byram. He got the Byram goal.
He got Byram. Blaze, when they made it 4-3, Blaze like jumped out of his seat because it was a JT Comfort goal, and that was what he needed.
He won like $100 on that bet.
Just on that one. So I'm definitely gonna have to make up for some of the ones I missed out on last night. I'll be jumping back in tonight. Make sure you do the same. Honestly, guys, even from just a year ago when all of the sports betting became legal and started really blowing up, some of the stuff that they offer in the DraftKings Sportsbook app is just amazing. In-game parlays, live bets, same-game parlays, stuff like that.
I love same-game parlays.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're fun.
A ton of fun. You can have parlays for different goal scorers throughout the night, a team to win, plus the game going over, game staying under, all kinds of really good fun stuff they've gotten there. And really, my favorite part is it makes the rest of the night a little bit more interesting, right? The game that you're watching ends, you can still flip around and I'm dying with all these comments and find something that you're interested in. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use promo code DNVR. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win with promo code DNVR. An official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. AJ, it's gone to period 2 here. So, yes, we'll get some mimosas going, and then they'll have to be dragging me off this set.
We're gonna do mimosas. We're gonna incorporate some F1. We're gonna get Jesse adopted into the F1 gang.
Cool.
It's gonna be a good time. We got to throw a Bellini or two in there just to keep things fresh and sexy.
This started with Morningscape mimosas, and now I'm just give me any excuse for a mimosa event. Anybody that can find any type of excuse where we can just slam mimosas and do Manscaped reads, I'm in. Vegas and Colorado were 2 of the top teams last year. One of the things that made that second round so fun, so interesting, but at the same time so frustrating is that the NHL once again pit teams 1 and 2 overall in the standings against each other in round 2 of the playoffs. Vegas has made a couple moves over the last few years to go all in, and the general consensus, if you check Twitter, AJ, is that the Avs haven't done any of that. So before we get into how does a Jack Eichel trade affect the Avs and what could they do, I do just want to touch on this a little bit because I've seen a lot of stuff this afternoon about, Joe Sakic never does anything. Oh, the Avs will never go out and make that big move. You look back over the last few seasons, that's just not the case. They have made plenty of moves to solidify this roster, and they're kind of in a similar situation. Yeah, maybe not the big splash of Jack Eichel.
You know, the thing is the big splash deal that they made was Duchesne, which got them Gerard and Byram.
Yep.
And then just because it hasn't been crazy, like the Kadri move was a big deal at the time. P.S. It's still paying off for Colorado. He's their 2C. Now, however you feel about Kadri is however you feel, but the reason that they're probably not going after Tomas Hertl is because Kadri's still fine.
Yeah.
Like, you need a wing more than you need Tomas Hertl. But Burakovsky, he's one of those wings. That guy has worked out great.
Yeah.
The thing is that Kadri, Sakic and the Avs have made big moves without giving up big prices until Darcy Kemper.
Yeah.
Darcy Kemper was the first time Sakic had ever traded a first-round pick. It was the first time that they had ever really, where you looked at the trade that they made and you say, that's a really heavy price.
Yeah.
2 seconds for Devon Taves. Every single NHL team should have been comfortable with that.
Would have done that, yeah.
Nikita Zadorov and Anton Lindholm for Brandon Saad. What? What?
Well, and here's the other thing too to keep in mind is like their big Jack Eichel name is Nathan MacKinnon. Like they aren't needing to go out and acquire, at least obviously you would have taken Jack Eichel. The Avs checked in on Jack Eichel. But Jack Eichel is Vegas's response to Nathan MacKinnon. And so
Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah. And so it's like, yes, maybe the Avs haven't gone out and gotten a player like that, but that's because they are fortunately in a position where they've drafted that player for their organization. And you know, that entire top line, obviously Vegas, you know, they're still only I think this is their 6th season. And so obviously they're not quite in the same situation where they could have all these, you know, accumulated players that they've drafted. But part of the reason the Avs haven't gone out and done that move is because that top line, that again, to reiterate, is considered one of the best lines in the NHL, if not the best when they're going, are all Colorado draft picks. They have been able to your point, AJ, spend kind of bargain money on impact players that play up in their lineup, but they haven't had to make this type of big splash that Vegas has had to make now. What, Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty? I mean, literally, they're all their big names have come via big price tag trades. So it was just something that I thought is a funny theme bouncing around this morning that on face value, I guess maybe is technically true, but really kind of a misrepresentation of where the Avs are at.
Yeah, and like you look at Kevin, I do want to talk about why JoJo started last night, because I think I know why. And I was thinking about it on the drive home last night. I think I got this one. But
I'd love to talk about that.
For now though, we'll stay on topic.
We'll do that in period 3.
It's really like, yeah, like it's they're 4-4-1. They haven't really looked very good to start the year. They haven't given you very much excitement. You're kind of blah about the Avs right now. Like it's hard to feel good about the Avs. What you view as like your biggest obstacle to getting to the Stanley Cup Finals just made the trade of the year in getting Jack Eichel. Like you have some problems here. You've got injuries that are ravaging your lineup. You've got young players doing nothing for you every single night that they're in there. And this isn't just Sampo Ranta and Martin Kaut, who's now week to week with a shoulder injury. It's not Alex Newhook having a nothing preseason and getting sent down after one game. You're talking Tyson Jost hasn't taken any kind of step forward. Granted, Tyson Jost, we know the limitations. He needs to be around some decent players, but he also can't play too high up in your lineup. And when you've got all these guys coming in and you're saying, well, Tyson Jost needs to lead. Tyson Jost has to drive this line. Tyson Jost has to be the guy on this line. He can't do it. He's not capable of that. He just can't. So, you know, I think we're seeing that Tyson Jost is really more of a 4C than anything else. And that's a bummer because he really, like the Avs really needed him to be a 3C. Mm-hmm. But he's probably more of a 4C, still a fish out of water. Like they are, you know, Val Nichushkin has been an important absence because he was their 6th guy in the top 6 where he probably is playing up there, but he at least fit style-wise, personality-wise. Like there were good things about having him there where you were comfortable with him in that role, even if he probably wasn't going to score enough to really justify it.
Produce it,
yeah. They if you want to talk about where they need to make a move, that remains the position. It remains just that one extra wing. Now, obviously, going out and getting healthy would be really important. Hell, Logan O'Connor has moonlighted in your top 6 in the last couple of games and not been out of place.
Yeah,
looks okay.
Seriously.
He did, and when he's around the skill guys, his really simple, easily repeatable game plan really helps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where
just the ultimate try hard mode too.
Yeah, and that's where like maybe, you know, fine. Like Moonlight's there for a time here and there. If you're talking about they need to go and make a move, that's where they need to make that move. They need another top 6. They need another middle 6 guy that can move around. Compher has proven viable this year. He's getting crushed in shot metrics like he always does. Like he has his whole career, but he's producing points, which you need. You need points. You need, you know, and is this level of production going to continue? No, there's going to be a 3-week stretch where JT Compher throws 1 assist at you.
Right.
But right now, he's one of the biggest reasons you're 4-4-1. He's one of the guys keeping you afloat.
Seriously.
More so, just as much as Nathan McKinnon, JT Compher is keeping you in this.
Yeah.
Bowen Byram is keeping them in this while Sam Girard tries to figure out what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are finding a way to survive right now. This is survival. And we'll see how they come out of it eventually. Like 3 of these injured guys are expected to play Saturday as long as they all feel okay tomorrow morning at practice. Like we're talking, this should be fine.
Right.
Like
you should be starting to bounce back.
Yeah, you should. Like none of these injuries are outside of Francouz and outside of Nuke are long term. And when you talk about, oh, he missed the first month of the season for Nuke and Frankie, it's like, okay, well, if they're healthy from there on out, fine.
Right.
You know, but it's really just that, like, this guy got nicked up, this guy got nicked up, this guy got nicked up, while 1 or 2 long-term injuries also were in play.
Yeah.
So it's and I know people are so tired of hearing about, well, it's injuries. What do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want me to, do you want me to say that they're not hurt or that it's not impacting them? The Avs are up against the cap. They spent their money and they spent it on a team that at the moment is hurt.
Yeah.
And like, it's not, none of these appear to be really long-term injuries for the moment, knock on wood. But as long as they can actually get healthy and as long as they can actually like start to figure out kind of who they are, then you can start to really assess what this roster is and is not. What happens when you do have a full roster and Sampo Ranta is only being asked to play a 4th line role next to quality 4th line guys, not other guys who are black holes at the moment, you know, like trying
to make the roster.
Like Jason Magna gotta go, man. Like the guy doesn't do anything for you. Is he hurting you? No, but has he helped you? Has he done one thing that's really truly helped you? Not really. So it's, you know, you need to start to cut down on the number of those guys, because right now there's 4 of them sitting on your roster, sitting on your forward core. You get healthy, you start to remove some of those guys, you feel a little bit better, and then you can start to really make the assessment of where do they need to go from here. What do they actually need? And, you know, if some of these guys can play up to their potential, it'd be nice. It's not like Andre Burakovsky, when healthy, was off to a world-beating start. Everybody's been disappointed.
Yeah.
It hasn't been good enough for a guy that's in a contract year. I said earlier he was not gonna get $4.75 million. Well, if he doesn't get his ass in gear, he might.
Yeah, he might. Yeah. Well, and to your point with the injuries versus, the way the team's actually playing, it's a lot of like what we talked about last night. More than one thing can be true. Last night,
more than one thing plagues them.
Right. It was true that their effort was not up to par last night, but it was also true that by the end of the night, basically half their forward core is full-time AHL guys right now.
Yeah, it's also true that of the 4 goals that got in, 3 of them you don't crush your goaltender for. 3 of them you're just like, come on. Like Jack Johnson doesn't take away a stick in front. Nazem Kadri tries to draw an interference call instead of putting his head down and getting back on the 3rd goal. And then the 4th goal, you're just like, that's a bad goal.
Right.
And when you've already given up 3, when you've hung the guy out to dry, you've already given up 3. When he gives up this is why he's a 3rd goaltender goal, that's backbreaking.
Right.
That's where, and so you have, you stacked problems. A night like last night, you stacked problems. You just created problems for yourself. And it all started with poor effort. It all started with just giving up on the game, getting up 2-0 and thinking that you were good. And you can live with a lot of the other stuff. We saw last night, look, they're plenty competitive when they're playing hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so taking this full circle with everything we've just said, how do the Avs need to be looking at this Jack Eichel trade? Do they need to be saying we are in a position where we need to do something, or are you of the opinion that Vegas did this to equal the roster the Avs have? The Avs problem is that they need to get going. It's not that they need to acquire someone else. Now, obviously, maybe you go down the line, you're looking at Phil Kessel. Maybe if Riley Smith is available, if Vegas is looking to offload him. But for the most part, where do you stand?
I mean, Tomas Hertl would be fun because you could maybe then put Kadri at 3C. It doesn't solve your winger problem, but down the middle at that point, you feel like you're really good.
Yeah.
If you go into a playoff series and you've got McKinnon and Hertl and Kadri and Jost, you feel like, hey, down the middle, we're pretty good. Now, can the wings hold up? Can Alex Newhook or Sampo Ranta play well enough throughout the year to justify an investment like that? We'll see. I also don't think that San Jose, off to the start that they're off to, is going to be in a hurry to sell off Tomas Hertl.
Right.
That's the other thing.
How much do they believe they can actually?
Yeah, and they probably think that if they have a good season and they make the postseason again, and they convince everybody that they're on the comeback, that they could probably re-sign him.
Yeah,
fine. But I'm of the opinion they need to. I think it's very, very, very obvious they need help. Mm-hmm. Now the question is do they want to go and get a Matthias Janmark kind of help? Kind of a middle 6 guy that fits their identity that would really help shore up their bottom 6 that can chip in goals occasionally? Or do they want to go and do they want to get a bona fide top 6? Do they need more of a Jonas Donskoy? Do they need more of a Brandon Saad? Which one would be more important? Because obviously the Donskoy type is going to be cheaper. The middle 6 guy will be cheaper. Colorado is asset poor right now. They're low on picks. They're low on drafted prospects. The ones that they do have, you don't want to see him trade Drew Hellison. You don't want to see him trade Sean Behrens. You don't want to see him trade Olausen. You don't want to see him trade Justin Barron. You don't want to see the guys that you're really hyped about go and do that. Like you want to see, that this is
unless it's for a good return. Yeah.
Well, and even then, like it needs to be if it's going to be, if you're going to move guys like that, it needs to be for a good return that's of a proper age that is not staring down the barrel of free agency.
Yeah.
You're not giving up meaningful assets to go and get Phil Kessel to try and get him to tap into the fountain of youth here as he walks into free agency. You just wait for free agency if you want that guy. Like you don't,
right, if you want him not bad.
I think that this year there's a much higher chance that by the end of this year, the Avs lose in the first round, maybe the second round, and that we are talking about this as a transition year. This is the year where Alex Newhook grew up. This is the year where they turned it over to Bowen Byram. And then maybe you start to have a hard conversation about using Sam Girard as a piece to go out and get your 2C, like a long-term 2C, not a 28-year-old free agent, but like a real 2C, like you go out and you get, you go out and you get a guy that's Gerard's age. You go out and you get a 24-year-old. Maybe that's the approach. Not something that I'm saying they should do, not something I would love to see, but maybe that's the approach instead, is that you just accept, hey, wherever we're going to go this year, we're going to go. But we're just sort of stuck in this weird transition period where we got really expensive. The cap never went up. We kind of got screwed a little bit by it. And we need our young guys to step up and take some jobs. And then we'll worry about transitioning. They've got money in the offseason. Now they have a lot of needs. They have a lot of guys that they have to sign, including the entire goaltending position. But when you have right around $30 million in projected cap space, you're going to be able to make decisions there. You're going to be able to make some choices about what you want to do with that money. It's not like Vegas is going into next offseason now with $4 million of cap space. The Avs will have right around, I think right now it's like 29 and change. So I'm rounding up and saying it's 30-ish in cap space where they're going to have a chance to make some decisions. Now, none of this changes any of this stuff in season. This season, the number one solution this year is Alex Newhook gets his shit together and proves that he's for real, the way that Bowen Byram has. If that happens, then this conversation is very different come trade deadline.
Right.
But that's if it doesn't happen, it is a I don't think just because they're already asset poor at the moment, I just don't think that they can.
You're really banking on those guys. Like this has been the conversation for the last few years. We've got a really good team. We've got we have elite players at the top. We have elite defensemen, but like you have been waiting for these guys who come in and kind of fill in around the fringes, right? Like these guys are supposed to be taking this second line wing spot that we're talking about. Is you've been banking on it being filled by Alex Newhook, over the last season and a half, Sampo Ranta, even Shane Bowers. You are expecting these guys to make that step. Martin Kaut. And if they don't, that's where a lot of this just kind of, I don't want to say falls apart because I don't think it's like that doom and gloom necessarily. But now suddenly you are having to go out and spend assets. You are having to have conversations about players and prospects that you really don't want to move on from. So I do think that this, a lot of it rests on what you can actually churn out of your system. Now you've got Alex Newhook, who again, down in the AHL, kind of like he was last year, just looks a step ahead. I haven't loved Newhook in the AHL. I think he's been good, but I don't think he's been great. And that's where I'm iffy on if he's actually going to be that guy.
Well, I'm iffy on, is he ready yet? Do I want to see him be great? Because when they called him up last year, he was destroying the AHL. Great. He was awesome. Most of his production was power play production, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
And this year, I just think he's been good. He's been more like what we've seen Martin Kaut be in the AHL, where he's been good, but he hasn't been awesome. So I would like, we're talking about like bring Newhook, but I've also said, and I stick by, don't do it until he's ready to go. Don't do it until you're sure he won't ever go back. And I'm not sure he's there yet. So it's iffy. But I think this is a short-term problem. I think eventually he comes up, he sticks, and however it goes with him will be a big decider in just how far the Avs go this year.
Yeah, no, I agree fully. And I think that that can solve your Vegas problem, if you want to call it that, internally. And, you can save yourself the assets, save yourself the hassle. Save yourself the hassle this Thanksgiving with Hassel Cattle Company. Turkey is out. Beef is in. Hassel Cattle is giving our amazing listeners a holiday special with 15% off your entire order. There is nothing better than delicious Wagyu beef as a holiday gift. Serve this up at Thanksgiving and treat yo guests right. Send this to family and friends for a unique and unforgettable Christmas gift. They will thank you. Use code DNVR15 at checkout to receive your 15% off the entire purchase. DNVR15 to receive 15% off your entire purchase. I mean, guys, it's good enough that we serve the Wagyu beef burger at the bar. This is one of the partnerships I think I'm most excited about since coming back. I cannot wait. I am gonna place a nice order for my dad this holiday season. Get his garage freezer out there stocked up. Chevalier Mortgage. Chevalier. Did I pronounce that correctly, AJ?
Chevalier.
See, I'm just not fancy enough. Something to keep in mind for our homeowners: with prices going up, it's creating natural equity in your home. If you have mortgage insurance, chances are you can refinance out of that and make that bubble work for you. If you're in a buyer's market, they know how stressful trying to buy a house can be right now. I can confirm that. If you've attempted this process, you know exactly what we're talking about. This housing market is crazy. And Chevalier, take the burden off of this extremely difficult process. They will alleviate so much stress and worry off your plate. They have a fun perk for our DNVR listeners. Visit them at dnvrmortgage.com and enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice when you do. Most importantly, get set up with a free consultation to discuss all of your options. That's dnvrmortgage.com. And then a familiar face for me here, Green Mountain Dental. These have been an amazing supporter of ours now for several years. Very much appreciate the good folks over at Green Mountain Dental. We've had several DNVR listeners switch over to Green Mountain Dental Group over the years and make them their permanent family dentists. Those listeners have personally reached out and let us know how great the experience was, and thank us for leading them to such a wonderful practice. There's honestly nothing more rewarding than hearing that from our listeners. So please tell us about your experience if you've made the switch. If you don't know, Green Mountain Dental Group is in Lakewood. They're the best damn family dentist in the metro area, and they're extreme Colorado sports fans, just like all of us. I'm actually due for a teeth cleaning with the job switch. I am looking for a new dentist, so I will probably make my way over to Green Mountain Dental myself. With that, let's start with period 3 here on the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Make sure to head over to DraftKings, download the app, use code DNVR when you are signing up. AJ, I want to make sure to get this. I wrote it down so we didn't forget. Why was JoJo starting last night?
So this is a really light part of the schedule. And so I think that when I was looking at it last night, home game for one, always easier in an easier environment. The other thing is that the next, like once they get going next Thursday against Vancouver, they get going. Yeah. They do have that 3-day break after the San Jose game, but they get to playing pretty
regularly.
Yeah, pretty consistently. And I think that had Kemper played last night, and then Kemper plays against Columbus on Saturday, and then Kemper plays both the Vancouver and San Jose games, and then Kemper plays the Vancouver and Seattle games. And then you're looking at the week where they play 4 games, including a back-to-back. If Kemper plays the first 3 of those and Johansson plays the Nashville game, you're probably looking at when was the last time Johansson played?
Right.
And you're talking about it being a full month in between starts for him. And I just think that this was a chance. They said, hey, we're just going to give Kemper the night off. This is a weaker opponent. We're at home. We've got days off. We've got days off before. We've got days off after. He can play in this game. And then I think he'll probably, I would imagine he gets one of those Vancouver games where he plays again. And then you know, that way they're not going weeks in between
him seeing game action.
Really, like JoJo wasn't
the problem last night.
Yeah, like you look at the fourth goal, but when you get 4 goals deep, you've probably lost in the NHL anyway.
Right. If that goal that goes in is the second goal, you're upset. Yeah, at that point, mad. The team had fallen apart so much, you know, within that period that it's like, yeah, that's a bad goal. He needs to make that stop. And this was something that I was talking about a couple weeks ago in his only other appearance of the season so far. He had a goal that, again, to me was just one of those ones last night where it's like, you can point at a couple different things. The goal took from a few weeks ago. It took a funny bounce and stuff, but that is one that if Jonas Johansson wants to be a full-time NHL goaltender, you have to find a way to come up with that save.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be your third goaltender here. The real problem is that since that you are in year 2 of Pavel Francouz's 2-year contract and have gotten zero games played out of him. 0 games played on a 2-year, $4 million contract that at the time it was signed was big time value because of the season that Frankie had.
Yeah.
Like it was all good and well. Like it was a good contract. He didn't have any injury history before this.
Right.
And now, you know, you're looking at it and you're like, is this bad luck or is this who he is moving forward? Is this just like the worst timing? Because he was healthy to start last season too. Yeah. He got hurt the first week of practice as they were getting ready to go to California. So it's a tough conversation, I think, and I think that JoJo played last night just to keep him fresh.
I also think that there is a level of this that when they went out and acquired Kemper, obviously the only real big question mark with Darcy Kemper has always been the health, right? And I think kind of the idea was we have a team that we think is going to be much better in front of Darcy Kemper than what he's coming from, what he's been used to in his career. And again, the idea was we've got Pavel Francouz and Jonas Johansson, who again, his track record with his actual record with the Avs last year was good. It was solid. It was fine. I think they were looking at it saying, we can really kind of shelter Darcy Kemper. We can give him starts. He's our number one, but we can give him a lighter workload this year so that come playoff time, he is ready to go. And so I think there's maybe a level of that as well, where it's like, hey, we want to make sure that we are sticking to what our plan is for who our number one really is. And they do, man. The Avs have the mindset, to me, it appears they have the mindset of we need to get in. It may not be pretty. We're going to have some bumps and bruises. But, you know, they put so much focus and so much emphasis last year on winning the President's Trophy, getting home ice advantage throughout the playoffs, and they ended up getting bounced in 6 games.
He squandered it.
Right. In Vegas's barn. So the home ice really ended up meaning nothing. I think they've kind of just got that mindset of we're going to get in this year and we want to be hitting our stride when the playoffs come.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't think they're sandbagging it. I don't.
Yeah.
It's just that they haven't been healthy enough for them to even think about doing something like that to start the season. Right. They haven't even had a chance to be like, we're working our way into it. Like they haven't been healthy enough for this yet. So
yeah. AJ, we're already up over an hour. Do you have anything else for today? A couple notes coming out of practice that I'll touch on real fast. Mikko Rantanen was back in a regular jersey. We're not going to dive too much into this because we got a show for you guys tomorrow. We'll get into a lot of the lineup stuff, players that are coming back for Saturday. But even based on who was on the ice today, looks like the Avs are getting healthy ahead of this weekend. Hopefully that injury list shrinks.
They've got if they all feel good tomorrow morning at practice, Rantanen, Burakovsky, and Devon Toews are all expected to play Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see what Columbus does with those three guys in the lineup.
Yeah.
If they make it into the line, it will be interesting to see how different that matchup looks, especially because of the trickle-down effect of Rantanen and Burakovsky. Like, Devon Toews is obviously great. Great. Well, Devon Toews pushes Curtis McDermott off the ice. That's an enormous upgrade. But you talk about Rantanen on the top line, and then Burakovsky on your second line, and then JT Compher probably on that second line, but maybe filters down somewhere else, right? It just has such a huge impact on their ability to shift after shift, to outskill a team like Columbus, where last night, like, they needed better from Nathan MacKinnon. They just did. I don't feel like that's an arguable point. They needed more from Nathan MacKinnon. They've needed more from Nathan MacKinnon pretty much this entire season. Outside of one or two games, you're really looking at MacKinnon and saying he hasn't gotten it going yet.
Yeah.
He had a slow start to last season too, where it was like he's putting up points, but you're watching him and you can see this is problematic. And unlike last year, he doesn't have unbelievably good underlying numbers to suggest that there was a huge breakout coming and things are gonna get better quickly. He's got bad underlying numbers that suggest he's struggling quite a bit more than he has in recent years.
Yeah.
So it's, and some of this is the fact that his line mates have been changing every game.
Every game, every practice, even.
The true like top line that they want to put together has barely played together.
Yeah.
So it could just be that simple. Like, this may not be complicated. Some of these guys come back and all of a sudden the team looks great. And we look back on these pods in 2 weeks and are like, remember when we were like, they may lose in the first round. This is a very good hockey team. Like,
well, I even think back to game one, and I know it's against a Chicago team that has fallen flat on their face from top to bottom. Like, that first 10 minutes of that Chicago game, I seriously remember sitting there like, cool. Like, this team is like just jokes level of good again.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, the way they snap like, they're snapping the puck around.
Yeah,
dude.
It was some Globetrotter shit, man.
Seriously.
They were on a completely different plane of existence. That's a good reminder of like when they play well. And you look at what they did more. The one that I think was more telling was what they did in St. Louis against a hot team that had everything going well for them. Now, granted, they were out a couple players, but Colorado was too. And they outshot that Blues team 42-18. They outworked, they outhit, they out-physical, they out-muscled, they bullied a Blues team in their own barn. And that was the game where I'm like, you can kind of see some of the attitude changes that they're looking for from this year's team with a more physical identity taking root. But it hasn't sunk in game to game yet. They're not comfortable playing that shift to shift, night to night. Some of that, I'm sure, is injury, but mostly it has been more of an effort problem than was expected at this point, and that is the biggest concern for me, because that's a sign of a team that's starting to tune out a coach. And I'm not on the fire Jared Bednar train. I've been one of his most vocal supporters for years.
Yep.
But
same.
I'm also the guy that says that when there's a problem, you talk about it. And when you start to see multiple poor efforts like they have in the first part of the year, it starts to be a red flag that the coach might be getting tuned out. Again, this could just be injury. This could be something much deeper.
Yeah.
Hopefully when they get healthy, hopefully they do get healthy here in the near future, and they start to answer that question a little bit, and I end up looking like an idiot suggesting that it was the coach. Like, hopefully that's how this goes.
Right. And I do, man. I really do think that's where it's going to go. I think there's a lot of frustration kind of running through that locker room right now. Guys are definitely gripping the stick a bit. Sure, coach is frustrated. So I think it all kind of flips around, and we do kind of look back on these conversations with a joke. DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings. AJ, any final thoughts before we jump out of here on this Thursday?
We have a whole show to do tomorrow, so I don't need to get too into it. We've still got 2 shows to do this week, so I think today was good discussion. The Jack Eichel, I'm glad the Eichel thing is done. I feel like a dick for having not said this already, but the number one thing that I'm happy for is that Jack Eichel doesn't have to be in pain anymore. He's free to go and get the surgery that he wants with the doctor that he wants, and he can just go on with his life. He can start getting healthy and doing what he needs to do for himself, because it's bullshit that Buffalo put him in that position to begin with. And I'm happy for our Eichel on a human level that he gets to do this, that he gets to restart his career in a place that gets to be competitive, and that we get to maybe see what that guy's actually capable of. Nolan Pratt doesn't coach the power play, bro.
And I would love for us maybe on a show early next week for us just to touch on this Jack Eichel stuff a little bit, just in terms of, I just have found it so weird that the CBA allows for this kind of disagreement between player and organization in terms of like treatment, and can allow it to go on this long. And I'm going to be very curious to see if this is something the NHLPA tackles, when the next CBA comes due, in terms of, is there a way to avoid a situation like this again? Because regardless of which side you were on, if you think he should have done the surgery the Sabres wanted, the surgery he wanted, I just found this whole process, like I had to reread and re-listen to stuff when all this first started happening a few times to make sure I was understanding correctly that
they're holding him hostage medically.
Yeah, that they couldn't agree on which one, so the solution was neither. Like, I just found this whole situation so odd. So I would love for us, when we're not an hour and 10 minutes into a show, to just dive into this a little bit and kind of get everyone's thoughts and maybe talk about where it's going, because I think that is a great point, AJ, that at the end of the day, it's good that Jack Eichel, the person, is going to be able to get not only surgery to help, but the surgery that he was wanting and that he was most comfortable with. So that's definitely good. But yeah, no, I think we're good, AJ. Like you said, we are back at it tomorrow.
Hopefully Rudo's feeling better and we can have maybe Evan will be around too. Maybe we'll get weird. It is Friday, so we could always do a free skate Friday and do some fucking eBay shopping.
There you go. We could do that. We can do all kinds of stuff now with the new look of our beat. We're going to have some stuff for you guys this year that you guys are absolutely going to love, and maybe we'll start getting a little bit crazy tomorrow. But for AJ Hafley, I am Jesse Montano. Thank you to the amazing Ali Monroy for helping us put this show together today, and always. I think that's all we got. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is a DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Have a great afternoon, everybody.